of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So at this time, we'll have a recognition of visitors that are here to speak.
And as I mentioned in my report, Megan Nunn is here from Airmark, and she is going to present a little bit. Do you want to let her go now?
Or do you want to wait, or?
I'm fine with it, yeah.
I think we could just, then you guys don't have to stick around for closed session and
That
So.
works. Okay. So first I want to start out by just thanking Mr. Meadows, the administration, the board. Any big change in a small town can kind of swing any way. And I think for Kelly and I, this has been a great transition. I think even for your employees, it's been a learning curve for them, and they're doing a lot more things than they're used to. But I think overall, we've got nothing but appreciation from the staff and the employees and everything. And I hope the students are really enjoying it. And with these numbers, I can tell you that I believe that they are. Like Mr. Meadows said, I'm here to kind of give you a rundown of where we're at for Q1 compared to last year. So he gave you a recap of just comparing, so you got that one printed off.
I got the recap of all the buildings. The CEP program, was that the first one that you sent me?
No, the first one I gave you was just a district-wide, so that's okay.
Okay,
I'm just gonna modify what I have written down here.
okay.
So I sent him also one that was a comparison of just district-wide, what we were looking at, and it kind of shows you, it showed the financial reimbursements that they got from the USDA and the state. In 2019, this is comparing basically all of Q1. So in 2019, the district-wide, they were operating at 17% participation with breakfast. So 17% of your student enrollment was eating breakfast, and then 49% was eating lunch. That gave you a reimbursement total of $31,135 from the state and the USDA. This year, we are currently operating at 43% breakfast participation and 59% lunch participation. So that has been a reimbursement rate year to date of $52,047. So far, Q1 compared to last year, we have served 7,540 more breakfasts in the few days that we've had. And we've served 3,153 more lunches. So that's an increase of 26% participation for breakfast and 10% participation in lunch. That is an additional $20,912 in USDA reimbursements for the district. So I would say that is off to a very good start. The numbers that you guys have in front of you are kind of breaking it down by building to show which buildings are really driving these results. Starting with primary, I kind of gave you a bulk number. I meant to have a little bit more information in there for you, but I'm going to run down the participation totals for you. So the primary in 2019, we were serving 29% of your kids' breakfast and 56% of your kids' lunch. Currently, we are serving 83% breakfast and 80% lunch, mainly because of the CEP program. That's an increase of 54% in breakfast and 24% in lunch. So the primary is blowing it out of the water, and just to see, I mean, we're serving more breakfast than lunch in both primary and intermediate, but to be serving 83% and 80% of your kids is huge. With intermediate, they were last year serving 31% of their kids and 62% in 31% in breakfast and 62% in lunch. This year, they are serving 81% in breakfast and 77% in lunch. So that's a 50% increase in breakfast and a 15% increase in lunch. So those two buildings, because of the CEP program, are really driving our big results. The middle school, we do have an increase. We have, in breakfast last year, they were serving 12%, and in lunch, they were serving 42%. This year, we're serving 17% in breakfast and 51% in lunch. So a 5% increase in breakfast and a 9% increase in lunch. And purely that's from offering, that increase is offering, more than just one entree for them. Nothing, they're still paying the free paid and reduced like normal. And then for the high school, We're looking at 4% of breakfast is what they were serving last year, and 51% in lunch. And this year we're serving 6% of breakfast, so we raised it up a little bit. And then actually lunch, meal-wise, it has dropped a little bit. We are down 3%. And a factor that we kind of have to look into that is a la carte dollars. In the past, you guys, the high school has had to receive a tray and get their full meal. And then if there were any leftovers, then they could purchase a la carte. Now they have all those options that they can purchase, so it necessarily doesn't have to be a meal they can purchase. And so that might cause some of that to drive down as far as meals. I was just talking with Kelly, we're gonna talk with the girls though and kind of maybe set some stuff up a little differently to help still promote getting a full reimbursable meal for your students, so that way the district benefits from reimbursements on all that. So overall, I think it's been a phenomenal start to the school year with our program. So, any questions, or have you heard any concerns or any feedback from the community? Anything that, we're open ears, so if you do hear anything, just please let us know and we'll do what we can to accommodate.
I've heard nothing but positive from the kids,
But
so that's what it's all about.
I was trying to get them today to tell me at the primary what was their favorite thing for lunch, but they kept telling me cookies because I was feeding them a sugar cookie every morning. So, that's all I got out of them. So, but again, thank you guys for your support, and it's been a good transition, and we hope to only grow within Sangamon Valley.
Can I ask you a question? On the primary and intermediate, where they're under the CEP program, you know, you're over 80%, which is tremendous. But you had said if they take a milk and a fruit, was that it? If they didn't want the full breakfast, they would still qualify if they did, wasn't there?
A milk and 2 sides,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
Yes, so they could take the milk and then the fruit and the juice, and then that could be a reimbursable meal still.
And I'm sure you keep telling people that, but are they getting that? You just still have some that just don't want to participate at all?
I think so.
We still have some that don't want to participate, but I think a lot of that is they don't understand, like the parents
Okay.
don't understand, and they're telling their student, just get a milk, like every single time. So it's
Okay.
more reaching back out to parents. And
So it's
no.
still a teaching thing with
Yes,
families?
yes, definitely, and that's probably, it's probably 5 that would have an opportunity for that. On any given day, 5 consistent kids that get a milk every single day, and they don't get those side dishes as well.
Okay,
And some of that too, you'll never get 100% participation, even if it's free.
right.
You'll have picky eaters that just don't want, or you just have those parents that do feed their kid right before they get to school, so they're full,
Absolutely.
and they don't want to take part. So you always have those scenarios.
And is it my understanding that if they just take the milk, technically they still are supposed to be paying for that, correct? And now, I guess if they're already on free and if they qualify for free and reduced, then maybe that's a moot point. I don't necessarily
It's
understand.
not, even if they qualify for free and reduced, even like in the normal structure, like the high school or the middle school,
all
even if they were free and all they got was the milk, they were still paying.
paying.
Yep, they only are free for that reimbursable meal.
So we still have kids that are paying for milk as opposed to getting the milk and the juice and the fruit for free.
But if, I guess if ultimately if the parent's putting the money in the account, I mean, that's what, they're okay with it. But, yes, it makes no sense. I mean, ultimately, why not get a meal and hand it out to your friends, keep your milk, and then it's free, versus paying, but
Have we reached back out to them yet?
I have not done an update, no, I haven't, and I can definitely reach back out, and I can talk to those individual parents, because I can tell you off the top of my head who those parents are, so.
That
yeah, we
might be
can definitely do that.
beneficial, just so if maybe they understand it completely, they might partake.
We have parent-teacher conferences coming up next week, so I can definitely just
yeah.
face-to-face contact with those parents as well, so.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, we need a motion to enter closed session for the reasons stated on the agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Eric Pearson, is there a second?
Second.
Linda Weldy, call roll please.
Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Weldy,
Yes.
Guerrero,
Yes,
Leeper, yes.
and I have 6:11. Made by Eric Pearson, is there a second?
Second.
Linda Weldy, call roll please.
Stahl,
Yes.
Weldy,
Yes.
Guerrero,
Yes.
Leeper, yes, Pearson,
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Okay, and then I need a motion to accept the resignation of Jennifer Williams as middle school night custodian.
So moved.
Motion made by Roger Reed, is there a second?
So,
Jeff Stahl, second. Call roll, please.
Welby,
Yes.
Guerrero,
Yes.
Leeper, yes, Pearson,
yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
And then we got James here now
so sorry.
at 6:33. Motion to hire, motion to grant Kevin Puckett leave under the Family Medical Leave Act to begin on November 4th and end when he receives a doctor's note releasing him to return to work.
So moved.
Motion made by Eric Pearson, is there a second?
Second.
Linda Weldy, call roll please.
Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Welby,
Yes.
Guerrero,
Yes.
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes.
Okay. And at this time, you all received the consent agenda in your packet. Does anyone have any questions on the consent agenda? So I need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Glenda Weldy, is there a second?
Second.
Roger Reed, call roll please.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Welby,
Yes.
Guerrero,
Yes.
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes, Pearson.
Yes.
Superintendent's report.
First up is the tax levy. And I included in your board packet this time because we had a new board member, kind of all the documents that we put together for the levy itself. And so just to kind of go through some of the numbers, Jonathan and I worked together on this. It's a good experience for him, and we could check each other's numbers and that sort of thing as well. I'm estimating our EAV with a 2% projected growth, which is a little bit down from 17 to 18, but I'm projecting a 2% growth at $93,913,875. And with that projected growth, that comes out to roughly about $108,000 additional revenue that we can come in or bring into the district without having to raise any of our tax rates. And so you see that the 3.6 tax rate on our ed fund generated just a little over $3,380,000, an additional $125,000 plus. And operation and maintenance, which is a 55-cent tax rate, it brought in an additional $19,000. Working cash, I did not levy anything in working cash this year to try to save a couple cents to put it elsewhere. So that has been zeroed out. IMRF levied the same amount, $82,112. And again, like I mentioned in my report to you guys, I don't raise tax rates. I levy for a dollar amount that I feel like that's what we need to operate that particular fund. So I stayed at $82,000, just a little over $82,000. Social Security, again, I stayed right at the same amount at roughly $155,000. Tort, I did drop down. Again, that's a place that I want to try to save some cents if I can, a few pennies off of the levy, and we should be able to operate tort with $165,000, which is roughly a $30,000 decrease from where we were last year. And if something happens, and we do have a nice fund balance in that, if something happens and we deficit spend, then I'll look to bump that back up this time next year. And then the following, the last three funds are all nickel. They're all, well, two of them are nickel, one of them's 4 cents, special ed's 4 cents. And those are capped at that amount. And you can see the additional EAV brought in roughly $1,700 in health, life, safety, and lease and $1,300 in special ed. So our total tax rate just from those items is 4.91. And then when you add in our working cash bond, that we have one more levy cycle to go through, that additional almost 18 cents brings our total levy up to 5.089, which is a little bit of an increase from where we finished the year out. The total increase to the levy is roughly 2.36%, which means we don't have to do anything publicly. If it goes over a 5% increase, then I have to notify the public and we have to have a hearing. We stayed under that, well under that. And I feel like this tax rate, right around $5.10, to do everything that we're going to be doing in the future with the working cash bond and the other bonds, I think that it's lower than what we've been in the past, but I think that it's a number that we can maintain. Or maybe even eventually drop down a little bit more, but probably not significantly.
Not with all the new work
Right.
going on. Okay?
Does that make sense? It's
Perfect
kind
sense.
of a lot, but I really feel like this document here kind of shows you where we were and where we're gonna be. And I think Jonathan enjoys it too, working with the numbers and coming up with all that. And like I said, it's a good experience for him as well. So I appreciate him sitting next to me when we do these things and checking my numbers and that sort of thing. So I would recommend, when we get to that portion of new business, that you approve the tentative levy. It does have to stay tentative for 20 days, and then we'll come back in and we'll do the final in November, and then I'll make a trip to all the courthouses and file the levy. There is one additional document that I'll have for you in November. That basically, it's a document that says we are going to pay those alternate revenue bonds, that we're gonna use our tax, our 1% sales tax for that. So I have to make note of that. That has to go to the courthouses as well. And that way, that will not count against. The only thing that really does that dollar amount won't count against our maximum bonding number. That I think right now is somewhere around $12 million. Not that we're gonna go out and spend another $12 million, but it's recommended by the Chapman and Cutler that we file that and not affect that bonding number. So I will have that for you in November. So what's next?
Food service we already did.
Did food service update. I added the Regional Office of Education, Health, Life, Safety Inspection. They come out every fall and they do that. And there are a couple items on there. One of them I took the liberty of fixing already because I felt like it was something that needed to be done. We were having some electrical issues in the workroom over at the intermediate building, blowing, tripping breakers and that sort of thing. And it was a classroom at one point that I think maybe had 3 outlets. And then we moved in a copy machine, a table for warmers and, things that you would have in there for lunch, and a laminating machine, and it was just too much for the circuit. So I called Anderson Electric and met them over there, and unfortunately there was a breaker panel right across the hallway that they could tap into, and they added 2 lines to the break room. And then they also added a line to Lacey Wood's room, which is on the opposite side of that break room wall. She was having some issues where she would turn on her computer and somebody would run the electric fence and then the Promethean board would come on and everything would go black. So it was very frustrating for her, but we got it fixed. So they did that Monday. They came in, they did get Columbus Day off, so we scheduled it for then. So I hope that was okay. I think it was $2,500 to get all of that fixed. And then the last thing, I made mention in my recommendation page to you that we have 3 doors that all are original to the 1926-27 structure at Heliopolis. Those are only used for egress in case of emergency, but they still need to function correctly. They need to open easily and they need to close afterwards, and they are not doing that. So I recommend that we spend a little bit of money and replace those doors. And I think the quote for all 3 of those doors was just a little over $7,000, which I think is pretty reasonable for 3 steel doors with all the hardware, the panic hardware and everything.
Will that have the tempered glass in it or whatever that's harder to break?
It will have just a small light in there, and it is tempered, but it's not laminated. I could probably check and see if you would like.
Well, you're going down to a small, you're not gonna have that kind of an open window look then anymore.
Is this behind staircases?
Yes. And then you can see the pretty wall where, as I mentioned, I'm having the paint tested for lead. I don't believe that it is. I spoke to a representative from Ideal Environmental, and she said, I really doubt that that's lead because lead paint was expensive, and you don't put expensive lead paint in schools typically. So she didn't seem real concerned about it, and it's not a high traffic area where the kids are all the time. That first door kind of goes down to the boiler room, and then on the other side, it's just an egress door. Well, I would recommend that when we come out of this portion of the meeting and get into new business, that you approve that.
And
Yes.
it's not, any of the doors that NG was gonna be replacing?
No.
Oh, darn it. Could just save a penny.
And I don't believe that the electrical upgrade was anything that they would have ended up doing either.
That's small enough. I just was hoping maybe those doors, because they were doing all the safety and the locking and stuff, I thought maybe it was gonna encompass the doors. Okay.
And then the last thing that is not on here in our superintendent's report, but I think we need to discuss it, is the consolidation update. Myself, Martha, Stephanie, and Jeff went over and met with a couple of the Tri-City board members and Jill Larson, their superintendent, at the request or at the invitation of their board president. And they just kind of wanted to meet and have some initial discussion about a possible feasibility study of consolidation with the district. And Mr. Heck, the president, kind of led off with the fact that they're happy with the current situation with our co-ops. There's nothing that they felt like, we're doing everything that we possibly can with the co-ops, and they feel like those are going well. But they really felt like they needed to do something to try to, I guess, better educate the kids. And that's why they're reaching out. And he also felt with the timing of it, with Tri-City and Sangamon Valley just coming into the new sales tax money from Sangamon County, that this would be a good time to maybe look into possibly doing something like that before they go and spend a bunch of money on their buildings. And unfortunately, I think we're kind of locked into what we were doing. And I shouldn't say unfortunately, because it's something that our teachers and our kids, in my opinion anyway, deserve, and that we need to fix our buildings. And we kind of need to take care of ourselves.
And I think because we're already locked into that, and I believe we benefited, all of us, from the consolidation 15 years ago. And I think another consolidation would only benefit us. However, we would have to have new buildings, and nobody has the funding for new buildings. So he talked about sharing district resources and that kind of thing, and I think that seems feasible possibly in the future. Would be more work for you and Mrs. Larson apparently, but they've also approached other districts. So I think there in their notes it was Mount Pulaski, but they're building a school right now, a high school. Riverton said they'd entertain talks as far as several levels, sharing resources, sharing educational services, and even potentially, I don't know if they're talking consolidation or annexation, but I'm not sure what the process was there. We didn't really address that. But, and of course us, was there someone else? Oh, Williamsville, and they hadn't met yet with them, so. But I really, that's kind of what I asked Bob, you know, we're locked into NG, we've already done this, we've done our bonding, we're ready to roll, so.
And I think they pretty much led with, our buildings need work.
Mhm.
And they worked on their grade school, but the other buildings need something done. And,
And before they spend any money.
right, they
were
want to see
wanting
if anybody wants to,
to reach out and.
yeah. And we've already committed to taking care of our buildings, or starting at least, so.
We have spent some money in our buildings, and I feel like what we are offering educationally, I don't know what more we could offer really right now. And I don't feel like that Tri-Cities
No, I
is the
think they
same
had the
level.
gaps that they were
Yes.
looking, I mean, they weren't, they had
Math
some
and
teachers, some
science.
staffing shortages, wanted some higher level, like AP and college level courses, and I forget what else they named, but as you go through it, I think, we already have that, we're doing okay there, so.
I think we all
I didn't
agreed
come away
that
thinking it's,
a long-term, you know, looking down the road, a consolidation between the two districts is probably the right thing to do. But you also have to have money, and I think doing it without being able to build a new building, I don't know if we can, but I feel like it would be a step backwards from what we have going on right now, with my opinion.
And just, you know, they asked about doing a feasibility study, and there's a cost for that, and there's a grant to take up half the cost, but at the same time, I really feel like the feasibility study is probably gonna say, yeah, that's a good idea to do, but again, where is that money coming from, and how can you make that happen, at least at the 6th through 12th grade
yeah,
level?
because nobody had a building
That could house.
that could do 6 to 12.
Yeah, I don't think that we could, even at Iliopolis, if we moved the elementary and the middle school out, that we could fit all.
I think that would be a load on that building.
Well, then there would be a lot of work we'd have to do over there. The science lab, a greenhouse,
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any ideas that they
Nope.
feel would work?
I mean, are we even, is Illinois even giving out any more grants for new buildings or anything? How long ago was that when like that stopped?
Well, we've been on the list for that since probably 2012.
And we just keep updating that, or do we have to reapply every year?
No, you're just on this list, and like, schools like Meridian had been on it. It was like a 10 to 12 year process at the time, and we kind of got on at the tail end. No one before us had, I guess, thought to put us on there, and we did so in 2012, and we're on that. But now, under the new governor, there's a new task force, and we were told that the October meeting at IASB, they hadn't even met yet, and they're potentially dismantling that list and starting anew. So, what does that mean? I don't know, because they haven't even met yet, this task force. So,
In your opinion, if they did like a tour and they went around to schools and looked at a neediness, we're
I think we would be up
probably-
there. And I really feel like that if we talked about consolidation, that would even move us farther up on the list. But right now, there's no appropriation for funds in that particular.
I just know that they know that these smaller towns are dissolving and it's gonna take more than our tax dollars. Because I think even if we were to consolidate with all these schools, we're low income area and it's still not gonna add any newer classes. It's just gonna be more of a consolidation. So there's gonna have to be some outside money coming in or a lot more turbines, I guess.
Well, I think there would have to be potential for growth of our districts, and I don't think that it's anybody's fault, I just think it's
No.
I think it's Illinois in general, that, well, I don't think we'll see the growth. I don't think that the districts that have built new buildings have seen the growth that they were told by the architect. That when you
Yeah.
build a new high school, you're gonna see a 20% increase in student enrollment at the high school level. I don't know if
And it
it's the
hasn't
timing
happened. Yeah.
with the, the housing collapse of 2008. That's about the time when everybody was getting their new buildings and that sort of thing.
Meridian, they didn't see much growth either, yeah,
Nobody has. Warrensburg.
I think Warrensburg built big and
yeah.
We checked a couple of years ago, 2 years ago maybe now, and the only schools that showed growth in Macon County were DPS and Mount Zion at that time.
I think the DPS was like 1% or something.
Yeah.
Which for a district the size, that's quite a few kids, but
I like the ideas that Travis and his board has. I mean, my favorite business quote is, the 6 most costliest words are, this is the way we've always done it.
Mhm.
And they're trying to think, bigger scale, but
Yeah. And what can we do
how do we
differently?
do, yeah.
And that was one of the things at conference last year, one of the things, lectures that I sat in on was the sharing of services and the sharing of timing your bus leases with surrounding districts and getting lower costs and that kind of things, and trying to just save each district money that way. I mean, I feel like that would probably be a really good idea, that we could go back and say, sharing those type of things would be beneficial, I think. Cafeterias, or do they do their own still? I mean, it might be something that Aramark or whoever in the next bidding cycle could bid them together, and because we're the perfect setup right on 72, you can go and drop into all the schools easily and that kind of thing, but,
and there are a lot of local schools, Decatur Public, Riverton, Rochester, are all Aramark.
that are already, doing that. So those things seem beneficial, but
I don't know how the health insurance, how we would do that. And
I don't think that's.
I'm not sure about
Yes.
bus leasing either. I'm not sure how that would work, or where cost savings would come in. Because a bus is a bus.
I think it was the quantity, I don't know, I can pull out my notes from last year. I think it was just the overall quantity and how they quoted their leases. But I know he mentioned our health insurance as well, and getting all of us under one group and that kind of thing, and I don't think that works. I mean, we did what we were in before, we had to pay to get out of
The
it.
Egyptian Trust.
Yes, and that was a group that was kind of done by school districts, but I mean, I don't think you can just go and say we want to all be considered one, because if that were the case, myself being a business owner, I'd want to group up with every other business around, try to get lower rates as well, and they don't allow that.
That would affect payroll services, and all of that would come into play for payroll deductions.
Mhm.
And you're already above 50 with our group now, so you're already considered a large group. There's not another price break for being a larger group. It's a small group, large group, that's all there is. So,
Yeah, so that's what we told them at the meeting, we didn't think there was a potential for that, but I think there are other cost-saving measures out
what
there.
about custodial services?
Yeah.
Could we somehow group
Yeah,
that?
dollar, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, true, never mind. I guess we're already doing some sharing.
Their other thing was sharing our AP classes or doing some distance learning labs, which I know we used to do years ago in Illiopolis, back when my kids, you guys were probably in high school.
I did it.
You did it?
Yeah.
So, but I didn't know, I mean, what do you guys think as the administration? Is that something that is easily done, could be done? Put a TV in there and broadcast it down to 4 Tri-City kids sitting in a group in a room and?
It would cost a lot.
I think it would be more feasible for them to drive over here and take the class. And we would have room for,
We have 3 AP classes currently, is that correct?
we have AP Statistics, AP Calculus, AB, and AP Physics.
Do you know what how big those classes are as far as enrollment?
Not real big right now, I mean, under 10, I think, in all of them right now.
So then it comes down to a scheduling thing
Mhm.
too, for you to line it all up so it would work.
We wouldn't change anything, probably.
Right.
Just, here's when we have it, if you wanna come over, we have enough seats, and, the students who come over, doing the work and towing on, I guess it would be more feasible. The distance learning thing, I think, would be extra stress for the teacher, but I don't know, we haven't talked about it at all either, you know. There's some new grants and stuff, I think, that are coming live out there to, you know, outfit your classrooms with that. And it's not like it used to be, like when I was in high school,
when
Jeff
Jeff
and I were, it was, you know, huge TVs hanging on the walls. And, I mean, you and I took those all down to Minneapolis years ago. It was a nightmare. But I mean, you had cabinets full of equipment now. I mean, it's as easy probably as plugging a, you know, a camera into your computer. You've got real time.
Almost like those new Facebook things that follow you. Have you seen those commercials?
No.
Instead of doing like, I mean, it's actually, is it Facebook? Yeah, it's through the Facebook provider. And they, I mean, you can put it in your home, and if you move, you could be talking to your grandparents, and if you move, it follows you and has like transmit, yeah, just like doing
They've
FaceTime.
got little ashtray size things that you stick your iPhone in and plug it in, and it follows you around. And you've got real-time video, FaceTime or whatever, and so.
So I think on our end, I mean, I'm not opposed to that. If you guys aren't opposed to the academic level of offering something like that, I don't,
Well, there'd be a lot of talk as we go on,
yeah.
committee work and stuff before we would get something like that up, but,
I really feel like they need to reach out to the other districts and see what they have to offer, and then if they come back around to us, then
So what are you going to report back to them? Because that was kind of our thing. We'd meet, we would get a consensus and then decide if we needed any other committees to meet again.
I think they're probably gonna wanna know, are you up for doing a feasibility study? And what they say, 15,000,
15 and a grant for half.
so we would split $7,500 in half to do a feasibility study.
But I think Stephanie's right, you know what it's gonna say.
They'll
You
say
already
it's a
know.
great thing.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to completely shut them out, because like I said, I feel like that to have a district that's gonna be around 50 years from now, that looks a lot better than us by ourselves.
And what would, I guess that would be my next question then, if we're gonna entertain spending $3,700 on it or whatever, what, is it truly gonna be a feasibility study just between the two of us? We know Mount Pulaski doesn't want it, and they didn't want it before.
I think it would just be between us.
Okay, because I wouldn't want to put any money into like going to Williamsville or, you know, something like that, Rochester or whatever.
But then what are you gonna, let's say you do the study and it says what we know it's gonna say,
Right.
what are we gonna do with it? Nothing,
Mhm.
right now.
Other than we could have it on file for if there's ever any money that says, this is our feasibility study that says we should do this, because we all know we should, but nobody can pay for it. I mean, if you think that would benefit us in some way, but if not, then we do it when money comes around, I don't know.
I say, is there a time limit on the feasibility study? I mean, can that be done at any time? What is involved with doing a feasibility study?
It took a while last time. It's not, I mean, you have to hire a firm, obviously, to do it, a right person. And it's a process that they go through and analyze everything to do with both districts and costs associated. And that's another thing. I don't feel like, you know, our district being where we are now would have any room for any kind of tax increase to fund this. And they may, they obviously don't pay the same property taxes that we do and that kind of thing, but I don't think any of our communities would want to see that, you know, a tax increase happen, so again. I don't know.
Well, it's up to you, I mean, I would say they have to be assured they're gonna get the grant, okay? Because they said, you know, a grant's available, so unless they're gonna qualify for the grant and get the grant money, I don't think we're gonna be interested, because that's $7,500.
Yeah.
If they can get the grant, and you can find where to pull that money out of,
Yeah.
you know, if they can secure the grant, then I guess, do
I
they
mean,
come
is-
back to us and we have to?
Is that what you're thinking, is doing it now, or saying in the future we may be willing to do a feasibility study, but at this time we're not, because we're locked into spending these few $1 million on updating our buildings right now? Are you talking future-wise, or are you talking now? Doing the feasibility?
I don't know. I think that's a question that,
Well, does their board or this committee, so I would assume that they're sitting there saying the same things we are. We did this a few years ago and we know what the results were.
no, that
No,
really
they didn't
wasn't,
seem to know it
They
had ever been
didn't.
done,
they
Really?
didn't, they didn't have a lot of information on it.
no.
They're all new and
I
their
don't think Jill even
superintendent's
knew.
new. No, Jill didn't know either. Superintendent's newer and she wasn't in, she's from the district, but wasn't living in the district at the time. And, all of these gentlemen that were there were newer board members.
Well, my thought was, do they even seem to have an idea of, based on the results of if a new feasibility study was done, what we're gonna do with it? Because I would at least assume that they are logically thinking that none of our current school buildings would house the student body, so we would have to have a new building. So what is their thought
Well, we
process?
disagree with them on how much this new school building costs, for one thing. They shot a number that we all think is way too low for a new building, 6 to 12.
And looking back, the number I told them was a high estimate.
Yeah, we were over, but still they were under, so. And in addition to, not only would you do this building, and we brought that up that night, you would have to have the land for said building. You'd have to have an athletic facility built of some sort, because it's gonna be your junior high and your high school combined. Assuming that we would leave elementaries untouched, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Does
A
the
lot of
fees-
assumptions going into it.
Would the feasibility study go to that level, or does it just say,
Yes.
no, that's it, or does it lay out a plan to say, if you do this, this is what it would cost today?
When we did it in 2003, it said where they thought the high school should be,
How much
and they
it would
looked at
cost.
transportation, the cost.
It does kind of lay it all out, but then again, it can lay it all out and it can tell you
But they tell you the money.
55 million.
But maybe it
I mean, you
allows
still have
everybody
to
to
take
see that where we're truly at, instead of just thinking, well, I think we could do this, or I'm sure,
Yeah,
you know, it's a possibility, and
I'm with Martha though, if you can guarantee that you can get half of that, then it may be money well spent to say, okay, at least we level set, we know where we're at. We can't do it today,
Right.
but in 5 years, we can pull this out and say, hey, we got on the list, we have some money, now we can think about it.
And we are on the list. They said they got on the list more recently. They're under us on the list by a few years. And it may benefit us to have that more recent feasibility study, that if there is a new task force and they do come down the line and say, this is going to be available, we can say, we already have this, and we're both on the list, and, you know,
Let's go.
and it could be 10 years from now, and it could be never.
Never.
But, I guess maybe that's where you should approach them and just say, what, if you can attain that,
What do we need to do to secure the grant, and then we're in.
at least looking, because I mean, I think it would let everyone know.
vote on this at some point. So when, do we wait till they come back?
Yes.
You're gonna ask them to pursue the grant first.
If they secure the grant, and I think at that point, wherever we are, we put it on the next agenda.
to spend the
and-
money.
Mhm. Assuming it will be under $4,000.
I'll check, I think that could probably, I think that may be able to come out of the 60 account to do. I'll check. And let you know where we can take that money out.
And I guess, I mean, in the past when it was done, just to, so it's on record, the old feasibility study said, you know, all of our districts, including Mount Pulaski, Tri-City, Oleopolis, Harristown, and to build the new structure in the geographical center, which I assume any feasibility study is probably gonna come out and say that same thing, so, just so we're all kind of on the same thought process.
Yeah.
And how it all works, but, anyway.
Probably won't be Weichels.
You do, words out.
For myself.
That's what Bob always says.
That's cheap.
Dollar.
You might just agree with me.
Yeah, Leopolis owns it now, right?
That's what I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tri-City is the biggest school district area-wise in Sangamon County. Is that right? I think that's it.
Is that what they said?
Oh, square miles, yes.
Square miles.
Yeah.
We're 110.
They were slightly bigger.
I feel like we're pretty good size, you put us together, the
Yeah, we
district
go
is
to the
like
edge of
this.
Riverton to.
Michael's
I wish there was more to do with what the state was gonna say, because I know that that's what they're wanting to happen at some point in time, is that less small schools hemorrhaging money and one school.
Based on some of the meetings we've been to, I think a lot of their focus, at least initially, is my understanding is kind of the larger schools that are running several district offices in the same.
Like an elementary district and then a high school district, but
Lincoln.
they're all in the,
Right. Perfect example.
who, Lincoln?
Lincoln, and even bigger up towards Chicago, so they're trying to downsize those, I feel like, first and cut out some of the meat.
Mhm.
And then, but I mean, they've gotta look this way eventually, but they've also been saying that for how long, that all of these small districts should consolidate, so I don't know, I think that they face more flack down here than,
Well, if you look around, we're not really all that small. There are several districts close to us that are way smaller than we are, believe it or not. So that's something to keep in mind too.
I think at this point we're doing very well, so, keep on keeping on, yes. All right, are we all clear that he'll at least ask for them to find out the information about the grant availability, and then we'll regroup at a later date? Okay? And then curriculum director's report.
I sent you guys all a link to the MAP report, our achievement testing for the fall. Nothing really out of left field there. The results were very inconsistent this time around. If I could guess, I know that I specifically had some high schoolers tell me that, oh, I didn't try very hard on this one because I want to show growth. And I said, okay, but it's about your mean score too, so you'll see kind of that across the board. We had some in terms of the norm, some that were above, some that were right at the norm, some were below the norm. Nothing like really crazy egregious, like we didn't have something that should have been a 200 and we saw 100 instead. You saw exactly what it was, which was just inconsistent performance. I think grades started with the math, or the map reading test first, and then they went into the math test after that, which also shows within that. So those didn't look really great, but when I did compare everything in the percentage meeting the growth target, which measures from last fall to this fall, so it's one calendar year, we typically look at our growth for an academic year from fall to spring, which obviously since we haven't tested in the spring yet, we haven't been able to gauge those numbers. But looking at the calendar year just kind of as a predictor, I shared those numbers with you too, and the growth that we saw, we did see positive growth in every grade level except for 9th and 10th in reading, and then 10th in the math this time around, which I thought was, I did not expect to see that whenever I looked at the initial norm numbers. And then really the percentages that were meeting the growth target based on that fall to fall number were not that bad. So it's always kind of, when you look at one report from it, it's kind of like, oh no, I don't think that was very good, but then when I compare it to all the other numbers based on the previous year, really it was not too bad. So we kind of just look forward to, we'll test again in the winter, kind of as a benchmark to see where we're at, and then we'll look at those spring numbers, finally fall, spring, which the last couple of years we've seen really good growth. We noticed that second grade this year, when they test, if the grades were a little lower there, or the scores were a little lower there, but it's the first time they ever test, so we kind of take that into account. Hopefully we see that a little higher when we test again in the spring. And then we usually see kind of a dip at 6th grade. Again, I think that's part of that transition over to the different building from the elementary school that we've seen is, being kind of we don't really know what we're going to get out of that grade level when they do their test. So, overall, I would have definitely liked to have seen some of the numbers a little bit more stable within that. But it's just something that we got to work on in the future. I think that we need to kind of go back and refocus too with the faculty about making sure that we communicate scores, and communicate where students are at with that, and make sure that we're doing that consistently. I think will be a good thing. But I also looked at that in comparison to, we had the new school report card, which is gonna go live here before too long. And I looked at our SAT performance based on what we had last year's numbers. I kind of went back and revisited that from the report that I gave you guys in the spring, and looked for the first time since I've been here, and for the first time definitely since we've been taking the SAT, looking at the new numbers on what is getting ready to come out. Our district scores in terms of the SAT for ELA and math were both 39% meets and exceeds, which is using those state numbers, which are a little different from the numbers the College Board uses. They don't make us look as great. So that 39% is on there, which is actually above the state average for meets and exceeds. So we were actually above the state average for those students that were at 11th grade and higher. Based on our numbers using the actual College Board cut scores, that had us, just to show you a little comparison, those numbers by what the state gives us back are 39% meets and exceeds. But when we look at the numbers using the actual cut scores from the College Board who put the test out, we had 54% of our students in reading at a college and career ready, with an additional 7% that were at grade 11 or above, with the remainder of those students being 1 year or 1 year plus below. And then in math, we were 41% college and career ready at that level, and then another 3% on top of that that were 11th grade or above. So that was, a 44% compared to the 39%. And then I don't know, their numbers add up to 39% down here, but when I look up here, they say 38 on both of them. So I'm still not sure exactly how the state math works in terms of our achievement testing. But when I see that come back with our SAT scores, it makes me feel, better when I see us have what I consider to be not the greatest testing session consistency-wise across the board for the fall. But with those hot days and everything else, we had a lot of variables in there. I'm not going to make excuses, but I'm just trying to understand it. So hopefully things look better in the spring when we see things a little closer to where we usually see them at. But I think we had an anomaly for sure this time around, especially when I went back and looked at the grade levels, past performance throughout school. So anyway, that's that. And if you got any questions or anything, more than happy to answer them or at a later time.
You're getting ready to have your first parent-teacher conferences at the primary building with the new report cards. Everybody feeling good about that and
Yep.
ready to go?
Yes, the teachers got them all done today, and I generated the first class, checking it out, making sure it's all looking okay, so teachers will send it out hard copy Friday, and then they will talk it through with the parents on Wednesday and Thursday, so, yeah, so far so good. I've sent home multiple things, put it on Facebook, and no parent has ever said anything about it, which we were just having this conversation today. My building's used to skills-based, because that's kindergarten first, has always done that. Second grade did do letter grades, but that's not a huge change for my building. But yeah, I think we're ready to roll and should be, hopefully, works out good with the printing, so.
Good. And standards-based for you, Mr. Burton, will that?
Yeah, that's our major goal for this year, is to look at it for next year. And we had Christine Paxton come in last month and talk to us. She's the one that came and talked to the primary last year. When I talked to her on the phone over the summer, we set a goal together, and that was to have our 3 through 5 grades fully ready to go for the 2021 school year. And after she came and talked to us, she kind of went, ooh, maybe we just need to pull back just a little bit and have, not really lessen our expectations, but just maybe make it to where next year we just do reading and math, and then everything else will stay traditional. But, we still have plenty of time this year. We'll see where we go. She's gonna come back in January, and we're gonna have a full day of PD on that first day back, so.
Have we decided, I really think it's a great concept, kindergarten through 5th grade. Beyond that, do you guys feel it's,
I've
I feel like
gauged.
it would get harder.
Yeah, I think it does get harder, and that conversation, it gets, it's gonna take a lot of conversations in order to make that happen. And it's gonna be a long time down the road before we move to standards-based grading at the middle school level. Yeah.
It seems difficult to me, but
Yeah.
what do I know? All right. I guess we move on to old business, and that is the video recording of our board meetings, which we've done for a few years now. And I don't think we had we had one comment saying we should keep it.
72 views, 7 likes, 1 comment. It said they would like to keep it.
I just don't think, I've stated this before, I think it's probably, I guess, okay for people to sit home and watch it. I'd really like people to come and be here, and I think people do come when there's something on the agenda that they are concerned with, and they know they have the opportunity, it's an open meeting. I think we could use our resources a little differently, and not having to have someone sit here to do it. I don't think any other school our size does. I think what Decatur Public probably videotapes. I have never heard of anyone else doing it but us, but I'm open to whatever you guys think.
Over how long a period was this, were the 72 likes or views, I'm sorry?
The month.
3 weeks.
For
Well, we had a late
3
meeting,
weeks.
3 weeks.
But again, as we're talking to Jonathan, that's like worldwide views essentially, like anybody could accidentally click on a video. Is it on YouTube? Yeah. So, I mean, but we're just on our website, I feel like that would be maybe a little bit more of a number that was coming directly from our school district, but you put something on YouTube and somebody Googles something, I think you have a lot of erroneous clicks, in my opinion, but,
There's some that have 1,500 views on.
yeah, see, there's no way.
Why?
Yeah,
Bib,
yeah,
that can be accurate.
that can't, yeah, or at least not from our district, I don't
Monetize it.
Dozens.
Yeah.
I don't think it hurts, I mean,
Do you want
I got,
to- Meeting Facebook.
one comment that said the person likes it, but they don't live in the state, but still like to keep track of what's going on at the school, so.
I will agree with whatever, it's not I'm not gonna fight over this. But I think it's a good thing in that, maybe I can't get to a board meeting. The issue is not something I want to speak or address, but I want to see what's going on, what's being handled. And in this digital age, you can on demand or record and see it when you want at your leisure. But if it's a headache to do, for the return of the interest.
Yeah, I'd like to know if there are that many people, but yeah, just one person. I would think that the majority of the people would like a one-page summary of the events and be done with it instead of sitting down for an hour and
Which
a
they
half.
get in the paper.
They get it in the paper,
Yeah.
the minutes from the paper every.
That's a long, we don't condense it.
Well, we talk about a lot of stuff.
We do, and it's just,
Most of the things that make the paper are going to be any of our action items. And that's how it's supposed to be, but.
I mean, I've gotten used to it, I don't mind. I think you're here every month regardless. I mean, you're not just here to videotape.
Yeah, she's
This is
filling in
right.
for Gorecki this evening.
Right, but she does minutes with us too,
Right.
so,
But usually
you know.
Jonathan's here too.
right.
That's what I'm saying, we're like, I don't know. Is there a way to condense that? If we're gonna continue doing it, to where it's, we just set up and we push a button ourselves and push a button and end it, I don't know. Just seems like a waste to me, I guess, is my point.
Make a call and see if he wants to fund it.
You could also, I mean, there's no reason for it to really be videotaped if you want to just put an audio, it can just be audio only if you wanted to. That would be pretty easy, but
Does it currently cost us a monetary value if we video it?
Did we up his stipend when we
It
made
was-
him add?
His stipend included maintaining the website and that sort of thing with that. I don't know how you could single out this part of it. Erica doesn't get any additional stipend to come to meetings as part of being the treasurer. and she likes to come.
Feel free to add that, make that a, pop that in there.
People cannot hear you nodding your head.
So if, you know, we gave the opportunity for response, got not much, one. So stop and see what happens. I don't know.
See if we get more of a
See if we get
response.
more response. Well, this is my
Gauge the
YouTube.
outrage.
See if there's
So
a-
you almost have to decide, would you rather have the video or would you rather have those chairs full? Me personally, I get a little nervous when those chairs are full.
Yeah.
So, but again,
Yeah.
like I said, it's really your guys' decision to either continue or don't.
I guess, I mean, do we have a motion?
Your motion is to discontinue, so we either let it die if we're gonna keep it going, or someone
What
else.
can you do, straw poll or no, is that allowed, just to get an opinion, but.
I mean, yeah, we can go around the table and say, what do you
think? or-
think? Do you wanna keep it or not? We can start with James.
Kill it.
Okay.
One kill,
Oh, keep it.
one keep. And we'll start with K.
Yeah.
2 keeps,
I'm gonna kill.
2 kills.
Oh, Jeff didn't vote.
Yeah, he's a
Oh, he
keep.
did? Oh, I didn't hear. I'm a keep. That's not my favorite thing, I think
3
it's,
keeps,
I would say I'm keep.
and 4.
That's quorum. Roger, you'll need that.
I don't
What do you
need
Do you have
nothing
an opinion?
better.
I'd like to
Fine.
hear your
Yeah.
opinion.
I would say keep it, just in case there's ever a question about something, you can always go back and refer to it and look at it and see if there's any issues. Whether people watch it or not, you know, doesn't really matter. You'd like for them to, you'd like for them to come.
All right, well
makes
then,
us transparent.
I
like that
enjoy
word.
being transparent. I just don't enjoy who I assume is watching it. So,
So we won't have this
Yeah.
motion then.
Have a motion. We'll just move on to new business, correct?
Yes.
well, I think the motion should fail. I mean, don't we need to show you have
So
it?
you can call for the motion you want.
Yes. So are we ready to move into,
Are you going to call?
yes, we're ready to move into that phase?
Yes.
So motion to discontinue video recording monthly board meetings. Motion fails to pass. Okay,
All right.
and then new business, we need to approve the FY19 district audit. Is there a motion?
Just
do you
a couple quick items on there, and then we can move on. If you really want to see the nuts and bolts of the audit itself, of Roman numeral 5, I think that's really the only significant finding that we ever have on the audit. And this was something that I
You
gave to
sent
you.
home for this
Yeah.
last meeting.
So if you want to go back and take a look at it, Roman numeral 5 talks about the segregation of duties in the unit office. They have been wanting us to have another person in the unit office. And I say wanting, if you read Roman numeral 5, you will say that they feel like it's not necessary based on the size of the district and the amount of money that it would cost to have a person up there. I think eventually with everything that, the reports that seem to get, we just have an increase every year, whether it's financial report to ISB, all of our grants have 2 reports that have to be done quarterly, which is ridiculous. But that's the case. I think eventually there probably needs to be an administrative assistant to the superintendent up there. Just like my office needs to be remodeled. I've been dragging my feet on that for a long time. So it's not something that they're saying that we have to do, they just have to note it. And they do every year. And then the page 4 of the actual audit itself talks about our financial profile, which is important when we want to do things like sell bonds and that sort of thing. And we achieved recognition status again. I don't know how many years in a row we have had that, but I think since Ernie did the initial working cash bond that improved our fund balances, We've been under that recognition status, so thanks, Ernie.
Which is the highest
We're
level.
doing that, it is the highest level. We're at a 3.55, a 4 is as high as you can get.
Okay. Any questions on the audit then? My only question would be, have we ever asked them, I've noticed another district has a board member as a second signatory on all checks. Does that get us, does that appease their,
I could ask.
Because I think that's what it always was. It was almost like it's a safeguard for Carol. Because right now, she's the only one that does all financials. And just to have another set of eyes, another signature.
And they do
on it.
mention the fact that we do have Erica as treasurer, that helps.
Okay.
But I don't know about the second signature, we just have one signature now, which is yours.
so I think, like I said, another school I've seen has a board member as a signatory, so I don't know whether it could be Carol or whoever, but I'm just wondering if that second signature would let them take their notation off.
I'll ask.
Okay. So then we
I'll
need,
let you know.
I need a motion to approve the FY19 district audit. So moved. Motion made by Martha Leeper, is there a second?
Second.
James Kent, call roll please.
Stahl?
Yes.
Weldy?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Leeper? Yes. Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
And then we have the tax levy that was discussed, that Mr. Meadows explained to all of us. We need a motion to adopt the resolution of the tentative tax levy for 2019 payable in 2020.
So moved.
Motion made by Jeff Stahl, is there a second?
Second.
Roger Reed, call roll please.
Weldy?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Leeper? Yes. Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl?
Yes.
And I don't think we discussed this one yet. The administrative salary compensation.
Yeah, that's something that we have to post on our website, and we have to do it every year. We have to approve the compensation report. Really, the only thing that you might have a question on is vacation pay for me, and basically what that is, if I don't use 20 vacation days, I can pay myself up to 1 week, 5 days. And I typically don't take 20 vacation days during the school year, so. One thing that I may consider, I'll talk it over with Barney, and also in my contract, I can roll those into sick, which would then go to my retirement. And that's something, instead of paying myself, I might end up doing that. Which would, not that I want to get out of here earlier, but then I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's something that could save the district money initially, but then also maybe come back and create an issue when it comes to TRS. So those are the things that I need to check into and keep you aware of.
Okay, so then a motion to approve the administrator salary compensation report as required under PA 960349.
So moved.
Motion made by Glenda Weldy, is there a second?
Second.
I'll go Eric Pearson, call roll please.
He's got voice on this. Since this is just a report,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's-
we're okay.
So,
We're not really
No, it's
All
not.
in
approving
favor?
salaries.
yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And then we're to the doors at the middle school. So motion to approve the bid from United Glass to replace 3 emergency egress doors at the middle school for the amount of $7,582.
So moved.
Motion made by Roger Reed, seconded by James Kent. Call roll please.
Guerrero?
Yes?
Kent?
Yes.
Leeper? Yes. Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl?
Yes.
Weldy?
Yes.
And then we'll have a special board meeting for the board policy manual update, which there were several with the new laws. It's scheduled for the 30th at 5:30. We'll also provide dinner. I do have to have a quorum, so if you can't make it, please let me know ahead of time, and that way we can make sure everybody's here. And the next regular scheduled meeting is November 20th at 6. This will be after No, it's before the conference. So we can do at that meeting, the delegate assembly and all that.
We need to go through the resolutions, to know how we want to vote.
Okay. All right, so we'll do that at the regular scheduled meeting. So at this time, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Eric Pearson, second by Jeff Stahl. He said it under his breath.
It's a voice.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 7:36.